Hi, everybody. I'm Sunny, and this is We Gotta Talk, a live weekly digital talk show and podcast where we like to dig deep. Real talk, big topics. Now, let's dig in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of We Gotta Talk. It is episode 2 of season 3. I am so excited for you to be here. If you've been here since the olden days, back when this was 30-something, or since the past 3 years since we rebranded to We Gotta Talk, this remains the place for, as you just heard, real talk on big topics. So we're all about self-improvement and different ways to make ourselves understand ourselves and our world better. And today's guest is going to give you so much valuable information. Emma Dunwoody is a human design coach. She's the host of the Human Design podcast, and she's been working in groups and one-on-one with clients over the past 7 years to help people understand who and why they are. So I like to think of this as one extra puzzle piece as we try to understand how to work better, how to manage our relationships better, how to manage our mental health better. You know, I'm always for finding new modalities of understanding ourselves and the world around us, and Emma provides such a valuable tool in that toolbox. So let's welcome her to the show all the way from Australia, Byron Bay, home of the Hemsworths, right, Emma?
That's it. Absolutely.
I just said to you, oh, where are you from? You said it's just this place in Australia called Byron Bay. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. Do you see the Hemsworth brothers? This is the most important and pressing matter we have to begin with.
Yes, like just in the supermarket. In fact, my youngest son was literally over the road playing soccer the other day. And he saw his kids, right? And he's always like, oh my God, Thor is over the road. And my son, Oscar, is like, hey, your dad, oh my God, he is the coolest. Like he's just like, they're just all saying how much they love him. And literally the next minute, he comes around the corner, comes up to the boys and just high fives them and says, thanks guys, I really appreciate the love. Thanks for letting me know. And yeah. And my husband has the biggest like man crush on him. And he's like, I saw him in Woolies today, which is our supermarket. So yeah, we see them all the time. They seem to be really beautiful.
How do the muscles look in real life, Emma? And then we'll get down to business. We just have to, inquiring minds have to know.
You know, that's hilarious that you even asked that, because my husband literally commented on his arms and he was like, they're not as big as I thought they'd be. Oh my goodness, you know? So yeah, I think they look great to me.
That's all right. Says every woman everywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, Emma, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we had been chatting back and forth before the show, and we have explored the concept of human design and how it's practiced and what it's all about before on We Gotta Talk. But I thought this was important to circle back because out of all the topics that we explore here, different ways to discover more about ourselves, or like I said, to interact a little better with our environment, human design was the one, at least for me personally, that gave me the license to just be okay with all the things that I formerly perceived as faults. So I really want to give people that benefit too, because I really find a lot of value in the way that human design sort of explores the world. So can you just tell anybody who's not familiar with what is human design?
Yeah, okay, cool. So I think the best way to talk about it is, my background is actually in behavioral coaching and profiling. So we know a lot of things like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or all these personality tests that help us understand ourselves better. But the big thing is that when we do these tests, we're actually using our mind to answer questions. Whereas with human design, we don't do that. We use it. It's our energetic blueprint. So it's kind of like we don't have to think about who we think we are. It's actually giving us a blueprint of how our energy actually works. And I love what you said about, really starting to understand yourself better, because when we get to understand or learn our human design, so often we discover that we've been judging and criticizing ourselves for our superpowers instead of, and we're trying to change ourselves. We're doing our personal development thing. But actually, we don't need to change ourselves. We just need to understand there's another way to express that energy within us.
So is it a fixed design, so to speak? A lot of these modalities teach us that we do have this sort of structure that holds us up as we are as a person, but it's malleable and is it changeable? With human design, does it explore ourselves as sort of a fixed energy print or something that can change?
Oh, that's a great question. So when we look at behavioral personality profiling tools, they're not meant to change, but most of them do. especially if we're people going on, quite significant personal development journeys, then quite often they'll change. Like for me with Myers-Briggs, mine changes all the time. But with human design, it doesn't change per se. However, what's really beautiful about it is it highlights our shadows, and it gives us that opportunity to say, wow, I'm expressing that energy from a fear state, but I can now express it from a higher state, from a love state, or, a higher expression. So although it's kind of fixed, there is this opportunity for us to see the journey within it to evolve as a human being. And it's kind of our own personal development map. Instead of going to a guru who has the results that we want, we actually look at our chart and our truth, and we go on our own journey without having to sort of apply other people's strategies to ourselves.
What have you liked best about not only coaching people with human design, but using the concept and the practices on yourself? What are some of the benefits that you found?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm a manifesting generator. So everything's about fast, So one of the big things that I noticed straight away, because my own journey started, at 28, being diagnosed with depression and panic disorder. And I had this really long journey of healing my mental health and doing all of these sort of things. So one of the primary things is with human design, from the moment you start to learn about it, it's not like you're learning all these new things about yourself. You're actually like, oh my God, that thing inside of me that I always felt, it's true. I can trust it. And so many times this itself helps people go through that personal development journey so much faster, because they read these things, they learn these things about themselves, and they already know it's true. It's like this huge permission slip just to be themselves. And in a personal development journey, it just makes that opportunity to recondition our mind or our belief systems, or to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, or to let go of the trauma so much easier, because it's almost like we can get on this journey, start to learn these things, and because we can feel the truth as well as, kind of mentally, cognitively know the truth, the change happens so much faster. I think also it's so important to say that because we live in a world where we've all been so heavily conditioned, it can oftentimes be confusing. And I know this was my journey, like, what's true? Like, what is true? Who am I meant to be? What is my purpose? And I've never been very good at being told what to do. So other people's opinions would kind of bounce off me or irritate me. And my journey was very much about trying to discover who I am and why I'm here. Human design gives us the themes, and then we bring them to life. So yeah, I think that's why it's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah, so it's not like, not to compare apples to oranges here, but I'm just using this as an example. So it's not like going to an astrologer or a psychic and someone else telling us, well, you're about to experience, a fruitful moment in your career, or you're about to experience a challenge. And then we begin to sort of think in that direction. So the contrast here is that it's examining ourselves from the inside rather than forces that are happening to us. Am I hearing that correctly?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is such a great question. And so a part of human design is astrology, because it's actually ancient wisdoms and modern science all put together. But I love what you just said, because it's not about people telling you who you are. And it's actually one of my little, if I'm honest, bugbears, because a lot of people in the human design world, they do exactly that. They get a chart and they say, well, you are this and you are that. And that's just not true. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes from Ra Uru Hu, who's the guy who actually brought human design to the world, he talks about how human design is like, for example, someone who's played Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. There's thousands of people all over the world that have played Romeo, but there's not one person that's played Romeo exactly the same way as someone else. And that's what human design is all about. So if you get a really good human design coach or reader, they're not going to tell you who you are according to your chart. They're going to tell you your potential according to your chart. And they're going to, like, for me personally, because I'm a coach, I'm always in conversation. I'm always like, well, what do you want to achieve? Or what do you feel, where do you feel stuck? Or what are the big questions you're wanting to answer? Because your human design chart's going to help you answer all those questions, but it's specifically for you to bring to life, as opposed to some expert trying to tell you what's in there.
Yeah, because that can be, dangerous in and of itself, feeling like you need that external validation to,
Exactly.
I know when I read, a retrograde is coming up in your sign, I'm like, it's so, I love the the self-actualization component of human design, that the power that it puts in our hands. So let's run through the types, and we will get to my chart eventually, but I know that there are a lot of people who aren't going to be that or identify with that. So I want to run through some very basic characteristics of all the human design types. And I know this is kind of difficult to do because everyone has a lot of nuance to them, but if you could give us a few defining qualities as well of each
Sounds
of those
great.
different human design types.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, let's think of the types as a journey, okay? They're kind of a journey, and it starts with the manifestor, which you are. And the manifestor is here on the planet to initiate people into action, to inspire. These are the people who start things. They've got the new ideas, they start movements, they inspire other people into action. Oftentimes, these people will say something, do something, share something, and the other types will have almost no choice but to kind of put that in action. The big thing to understand if you are a manifestor, and these people are about 10% of the global population, you got to understand that you are here to be absolutely 100% yourself, unapologetically yourself. And a manifestor isn't here to be liked by everyone. They're here to inspire their people into action. And yeah.
I need to pause you on that.
Please.
This is like what resonates with me so much. I think I've gone through so much of life feeling I always say the chafe that I cause sometimes with certain people. Like I bring something out in people that really irritates them. Not everyone, but I've sensed that as a weakness of mine for a long time. And it must be my energy or must be something I'm saying. So I compensate by being really overly, hey, let's talk and let's be friends. And that wasn't working either. So it's really revelatory for me. So for the manifestors out there, for anyone who knows your human design type, can we speak to sort of letting go of that element, knowing that we aren't here necessarily to like be BFFs with everyone? Can you help us release some of the guilt associated with that energy that we sometimes bring?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that manifestors will often do as young kids is become people pleasers for exactly that reason. You guys are super powerful. Like we know when you walk into the room, and that's a bit scary. It's a big aura. It takes up space. It's leading us. It's inspiring us, and that can be scary to the rest of us. So for manifestors, that's the most important thing you need to know is that you have your people. And I often say, like, you're either on the train or you're off the train. And that's all a manifestor really needs to know. I know for me, like I love manifestors because these are people that are going to inspire me. And oftentimes they're going to inspire you and initiate you out of your comfort zone, So it's really important for manifestors just, you're not for everybody. And it's really important that you're not, because there are things that you're here to do, to start to initiate, to make sure that people like me, I'm a manifesting generator, and the generators, that we are inspired by you. And if you dampen that down, if you, dim that light, then we're kind of like, okay, well, I'm not inspired here. But the moment you step in and you understand, like, well, I need to be unapologetically myself. You guys are also what we call energetically independent. So you don't need other people. You want people, but you don't need them. And that can be scary because, we live in a society that's so heavily conditioned to need each other. And yeah, we do as human beings, we need that community. It's very important for our, to live, to be in community. But the manifestor, they're very energetically independent. So it's important for you to make sure, and through human design, we talk about strategy and authority. And for your strategy is you have to inform. And this is one of the things that's really challenging for a manifestor, to inform. So tell people, like, sort of declare the direction of your energy. It's not about asking permission. It's never about asking permission, but it's about telling people where you're going, what you're doing, what your intention is. And then they know, am I going to get on this train? Do I want to go in this direction, or do I not want to go in this direction? And that's going to really help you feel so much better about it, because that will just weed out the not my people. And then your people can come with you on the journey.
I love that. Okay, so let's move on to the next type. That was manifestor. Tell us in the next one.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so then we have generators, and generators are here to basically bring everything into the material plane, to manifest, to build. They're here to do the work that they love. So in this journey, the manifestor inspires them into action, and then they get excited about something. And if you're a generator, that is your North Star, following your excitement. you are here to do the work that you love. You're not going to be someone who, like with a manifestor or a projector or a reflector, you're not designed to work a 9-to-5 job. You're just not. That's not your jam. And like with you as being a manifestor, you're designed to work when you have that creative urge, like, oh my God, I have to do this. And then when it's not there, you have to play. With a generator, generators are all about doing the work that they love. So they have a lot more energy to be doing, to be working, to be creating, to be building. And their strategy is to respond. So the thing about a generator's aura is it's kind of like quite big and attractive, and it's constantly drawing things into them to respond to. And the response mechanism is their sacral. And it's like, yes, I've got energy for this. No, I don't. And what that means is that the sacral is literally just guiding you through life as the universe brings you things to respond to. And what you're looking for is like that, or I have energy for this, or I don't have energy for this. The challenge for generators is that oftentimes the moment they get the sacral response, they go into their head, oh, I should do this though, or I shouldn't do that. And this is where you've got to be like, oh no, I need to just trust my body. And often I'll say with generators is, number one, you're already responding, because often they're like, how do you do that? You're already doing it. So go to your kitchen cupboard and look in the cupboard. What do you want to eat? That's how simple it is. And with a generator, you'll be watching them, especially, in conversation or something. They'll be the ones nodding along or shaking their head. It's their sacral response, constantly responding to everything. So the key is to make sure that you're lit up about something. If you're not excited or lit up about it, that's not for you. Okay. Your sacral's telling you don't have energy for it. So yeah, that's pretty much a generator. And there's generators and manifesting generators make up just under 70% of the global population. So they are the majority of us. The challenge is that for the manifestor, the projector, the reflector, we are conditioning that work energy. That's conditioning. It's been conditioning the planet for hundreds of years. And the challenge with that is, as we're going through this big change, everything post-COVID is like, well, what is real? What does work look like now? And this is a time where the generators are going to want to still work in a more conventional way. But it's time where the non-sacral beings, the other types, have to start to say, okay, I'm not designed to work all of these hours. So yeah, that's the generator. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to move on to the MG? No?
Let's do one quick question. I'll do one follow-up on each type. If you're a generator and you're, say, in a career or a job that you're not feeling lights you up, can you help guide the person to find work that might fulfill them in some way, while also ticking the boxes of, providing and making sure that they're being responsible to themselves and those they love? Because it can be really challenging, I think, for some people to pursue something they're passionate about if it means letting go of old patterns or other ways.
Yeah, this is a really good question. And one of the things that we understand through the frame of human design is we have a much better understanding of burnout. And the non-sacral beings, the manifestors, projectors, reflectors, when they burn out, they tend to be flat on their back. They know about it. The challenge with generators and manifesting generators is we do a thing called functional burnout. So we don't actually realize we're in burnout. We just feel like we have absolutely no passion, no lust for life. We're just in Groundhog Day. We're disconnected from, our vitality. And that's usually a big indicator for a generator type that this isn't the right place for you. Now, the challenge is that generators have been conditioned, because they're the ones that can do all the work, and, they feel this sense of obligation. Well, I've got the energy, I may as well do it. It's important to start to build boundaries around that and notice that, look, this isn't lighting me up anymore, and starting to trust that ability that you have inside you to follow the enthusiasm. Often you'll see a generator or a manifesting generator, they'll start building a side hustle. And that would be something that I would say, if that corporate job isn't lighting you up and you're super interested in coaching or something like that, a generator is set to do something like a side hustle. The big piece is boundaries. Boundaries are important for everyone, but understanding for a generator that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's that really important, like, okay, I'm not being lit up about this job, and I have to trust that my sacral, is going to have more energy. The other thing with generators and manifesting generators is to make sure that they're moving their physical body, because moving their physical body is super, super important for the way that the sacral works. So if you're feeling stuck in any way, go and do some sort of physical activity that lights you up. It doesn't mean go pound yourself at the gym unless you like that. But go and do something physical that lights you up and feels playful and gets that sacral response happening again.
Are there any well-known generators that come to mind? Any famous people of that?
Oprah.
Oh, well, that's well known. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Oprah's a generator, and she's a great example of maybe in the early years she did what she thought she had to do, and then later on she's just followed her enthusiasm, and that's how powerful a generator is, when they follow their sacral.
Yeah, when they're in their flow. And I mean, you don't get a better example than that. Someone who's literally made a living off of her essence and who she is and what she brings out in other people. Wow.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we went through manifestors, generators. Give us the next type.
Okay, so the next one is a manifesting generator. And a manifesting generator is a hybrid between the manifestor and the generator, just as it sounds. We are the thing about being an MG, I'm a manifesting generator and an MG. They're non-linear beings. So this is the thing that kind of set me free. It's like, I can remember being at school and we would get to, in Australia, we'd get to like year 9 and we'd start talking to our career advisor and they'd be like, you need to pick something. And I'd be like, I'd rather poke myself in the eye than tell you I'm going to do one thing for the rest of my life. Like, no. So manifesting generators are this non-linear being, and they're people who will tend to jump from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and they often criticize themselves heavily for being quitters because they're like, I can't stick at anything, I don't do anything. But the truth is that they learn faster, they achieve things quicker, they tend to be a lot messier because they're kind of designed to make lots of mistakes and then find the shortcuts. And for me, this has been a real, a game changer. So understanding that if you're an MG, you probably don't stick to something for too long. I had an advertising career before I got into this, and every 2 years I'd just get itchy feet. I'd just be like, oh God, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm bored. And the moment I would feel that, I'd get a call. I'd be headhunted from somewhere else and move jobs. So with the MG as well, they're all about the work that they do, that they're lit up by. But it's a little bit different because with an MG, you kind of, after, by the time you sort of get to 30, maybe even 40, you look back and all of these decisions that you've made to do the different things in your life, where you've probably criticized yourself, you look back and you can see the thread. You can see the thread, how all of these things actually come together. And what the manifesting generators are here to do is to discover newer, faster ways to achieve things. And what they do is they're like alchemists. They're like, I'm going to take a piece of this, I'm going to take a piece of that, and I'm going to put it all together because this works better than the old way. Mm-hmm. So the MGs tend to have, they also have that strategy from the manifestor, that they are here to inform and they need to be informed. It's the same for manifestors. So declaring the direction of their energy, and both MGs and manifestors, this can feel really uncomfortable to inform because most of them are like, I'm not telling anyone what I'm doing because people get in my way and they stop me. And it's actually the opposite. When we build the muscle of informing, and I have 2 sons that are MGs as well, so they need to be informed. And if they're not informed, like, our entire house goes into craziness because the MGs have this massive, big energy. Again, when an MG walks into the room, they've walked into the room. And oftentimes, especially women, they've noticed as kids that they have this impact when they walk into a room. I mean, I know for me it was the same. And they get so overwhelmed by it that they shut it down, and they spend so much of their life trying to shut their big energy down because they're too much, or they need to settle down, or they need to concentrate and focus on one thing. And the MG is like, oh my God, I can't do any of those things, so I'm just going to put a lid on it. So they also need to be in response. So an MG, when they get something to respond to, then it's like almost similar to a manifestor's energy. They're like, go, they're done, it's away. A very quick energy. But the MG is that non-linear being that is really here to be different.
Okay, I have to follow up question coming from the manifestor perspective. Do you feel like manifesting generators have that more of a not wandering but exploratory tendency, and then when they land, they're in on it? Whereas manifestors, do they always feel connected to? Do they tend to always know their purpose? Is that one of the
Oh, I love that.
differences here? Because I'm just thinking too of people, even family members that I know. We do life different, and a lot of people that I know, they need to try A, B, C, and D before they land on E. Whereas some people just know, okay, this is what I think I need. So is
Yeah.
that a key difference that I'm picking up on here?
Well, I would say as a generalization, yes. Okay. There's gonna be things within the design, like a line 3 is all about adventure, experimentation,
Mhm.
trying lots of things. If you've got a defined G center, you're gonna feel, which you do, you're gonna feel like you're on purpose, you know where you're going. But yes, so the manifestor, the way the manifestor works, all the other types, we're all in response in some way. Whereas the manifestor is in initiation, because source, God, universe, source, whatever you call it, that quantum energy that moves through all of us, basically moves directly through the manifestor in a creative urge. And it's like once the manifestor feels that creative urge, they're on it. Whereas the rest of us are kind of waiting for something in our external reality to respond to, or that's inviting us in, or whatever it is. So it is definitely a different energy. So this is the gift of the manifestor, is when they can trust that creative flow, they are that kind of unstoppable force. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so we did manifestors, generators, manifesting generators. What is the next type?
Okay. So the next one is the projector. And the projector is, they're here to be a guide. Okay. They're non-sacral beings, similar to the manifestor. And what that means is they're, again, not designed to work a 9-to-5 job. They're not here to hustle. However, with a projector, they are here to be seen and recognized. And what can happen is these people tend to work their butts off, and they will end up in burnout because they're just not designed to work that hard. But they have such a strong desire to be seen and recognized for their talents, for their for what they do, for who they are. Because they need to be seen and recognized to receive their strategy. And their strategy is an invitation. And the invitation says, look, I see that you have wisdom that lies inside of you. Now, because we live in a hustle, initiate, take massive action world, the projectors do this, and then they find themselves not getting invitations, not being seen, not being recognized. And that ends up, they end up being really bitter about it, because they're literally here. They've got all this wisdom inside of them. They have this ability to see energy in a way that a lot of the other types can't see. They have this ability to see how people are using their energy, and like they want to be, do less of that, do more of this. Have you noticed that this is getting in your way? But unless we invite that in, then it can feel very isolating for them. So if you're a projector, just know that you're here on the planet to aid success. You're here to guide success, whether it's yours, but more specifically for others. But it's this journey of, all people need to work on their self-worth. This is the primary thing we all need to work on. However, for projectors, it's so, so important, because if you can't recognize your value, if you can't see the wisdom that lies within, then no one else can at all. So if you have a projector in your life, please invite them in. And it sounds crazy. And I remember my mentor when I was first studying, because I'm married to a projector, she would say, like, invite him to the dinner table. And I'd be like, no. He can just
In his
come
own
to
house?
it's freaking dinner. He can come to the table,
Yeah.
And so I would just be like, okay, well, I'll just experiment with it. And now I see it so plain as day. It's like they literally need to be recognized on the wisdom that they're holding, because when they're recognized, they've just become these leaders, this new type of leader, where instead of going, follow me and take my actions, they say, if you tweak this and nuance that and switch this, then everything's going to shift. So like for me, for the projectors in my life, when they give me, an insight or some advice, even though sometimes my ego might be like, really? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a go, because the fact is that they're probably going to have some wisdom that maybe I'm not seeing. The challenge for being a projector is that oftentimes they don't see themselves as well as they see the other. So it's super important to make sure that they have their own support team and they have the opportunity to talk out what's going on in their life and focus on their own journey as much as they're going to want to focus on other people's journey. But a famous projector that is so well seen is like Barack Obama. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's interesting. And, you know, I look at him and I think immediately confidence, self assuredness, knowledge, you know, power, commanding of a room. And it's
Mm.
interesting to know what, you know, someone like that might be driven by.
Yeah, and think about like his energy compared to some of the other presidents that you guys have had, and I think predominantly your other presidents have been manifestors or manifesting generators, and the difference is like that energy of running to the front and leading from the front and being opinionated and saying these things, whereas he's always had that energy where he kind of sits back and listens, but when he speaks, it lands, and that's really what the generator is all about.
Yeah.
Sorry, the projector is all about.
Projector. And you know what? It gives someone who is that type, that incentive to go on that path of self-discovery and to find that confidence, because
Yeah.
that is the best confidence of all, is like being proud of who you are and not needing that outside recognition.
Exactly.
Wow. What's the percentage of the population that's a projector?
Yeah, I think they're around 14%. So
Okay.
there's not a lot of them either.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
And what is are there 5 types total, right?
there is. So the last type is a reflector. And reflectors, it's funny, in the human design world, they often get called unicorns. And all the reflectors I've spoken to, they're like, oh my God, I wish people would stop saying that. So
Sounds like not a bad thing to be called, to be honest.
I know. But there is this piece where being a reflector, the biggest challenge is that they morph and change. They are so sensitive to energy that when they walk into a room, they can literally know, well, that person needs to apologize to that person, and that person's looking, that person wants to pick up that person, and that person's got a grudge about something, and they can literally feel all the energy wherever they are. They're constantly reflecting back the energy of the environment, the energy of people. Even as a coach, and I'm running one of my masterminds at the moment, and I've got 2 reflectors in the group, and we were talking about coaching reflectors. And I'm like, well, one of the really big things you've got to be conscious of is that when you're working with a reflector, you're seeing yourself. So you have to be, as a coach, you have to be very careful, because you've got to ask lots of questions and make sure that what you think you're seeing is actually what you're seeing, because their role on planet Earth is to reflect back where a certain community is at. So oftentimes what you're going to do is you're going to find reflectors, within a community, and how healthy that community is will be how healthy your reflector is, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally. And reflectors just have this ability to see energy in a way that a lot of the other types, well, all the other types just don't see it. It's almost, it almost has this magical sense about it. But what it is they just have this real sensitivity to being able to read other people's auras and what's coming in and out of other people's auras. And they're just this massive indicator to all of us where that group or where that part of society is at. Because
So how does a reflector then find their own sense of self and their own identity and nurture themselves? Because as someone who, while not a reflector, is very sensitive to energy, I find it to be very difficult sometimes to walk into a conflicted area, like whether it's a party where like you said, there's people that are kind of one group here and one group there. Talk to the reflectors about self-care and about grounding themselves, because it seems exhausting to constantly be sensitive to energy.
Yeah, this is such a great question. And this is the thing that I think even the human design world really wrestle with, because oftentimes we'll say like, well, they won't have one purpose or they won't have one thing. And they don't ask reflectors who they are. And my line of thinking and my experience with working with so many now is like, that's not true at all. But it's to understand that they have this level of fluidity that they must, and their strategy is to sort of make decisions over time, and make decisions over that. We talk about the moon cycle, okay, because it's all about finding the consistency for reflectors. So they make decisions. The biggest thing is to slow down. If they really want to connect into who they are and why they're here, slow down. Take that 28 days to make any big decisions. Trust yourself that you can reteach people how to treat you, that you can take your time and say, I'll come back to you. I'm just going to feel it out. Because the other thing that's so important for reflectors is, how do the people around you make you feel? How do the environments that you're in make you feel? Because they are giving you direct feedback of what is aligned for you and what is true for you and what isn't. A reflector in relationship, they are going to be so connected to that relationship because it's going to give them the stability and the consistency that they long for. So it's so important that they have great boundaries, that they know what feels good and what doesn't feel good, that they learn to articulate their needs, all of those things, because they're really going to blend into the other if they don't read their own energy, if they're not honest about what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And ultimately, like all reflectors, like all people, they have a purpose. And in the nuances of their chart, they find more consistency, whether it's in their profile, whether it's in their Incarnation Cross. And then they start to understand that, okay, I'm fluid and I'll change whatever room I'm in or whoever I'm speaking to, sure. But there is this beautiful theme, this underlying theme that sits within me. And that's what they connect to, as opposed to, turning up as the same person every day. They connect to that real theme that lies within them.
Who's a well-known reflector?
Sandra Bullock is a well-known reflector.
Makes for a good actress, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite interesting because there is, for me, I think about a lot of the reflectors I know, they are so different from one to the other. And then you think about Sandra Bullock and all the different roles she's played, and there isn't maybe early on when she was doing a lot of the rom-com stuff, you're like, oh yeah, that's her type. But if you think about her whole career, there isn't a type. There wasn't a role that was more suited to her, if you like. So a reflector is that kind of, that beautiful fluid energy.
And when you say they're the smallest group of human design types, what's the percentage of reflectors out there?
1% of the global population. Wow. Yeah.
Oh,
so generators and manifesting generators make up just over 70% of the population. We're the biggest group. Yeah.
I'm listening to you talk, and I feel like the next thing I want to do is get charts for all of my children, so I can know how to and my husband to I feel like this would be a really valuable tool in understanding how to interact with those closest to you.
Oh my God, it's a game changer. And in my life, I grew up in a family, I'm an only child. Both my parents worked. I just wanted my mum to be home with me, and she just wasn't. And so I had this conditioning within me that I wanted to be home with my kids. So I did that thing, and I stayed home with the kids, and my husband was out doing a big corporate job and all of those things. And honestly, I was freaking miserable. And 7 years ago, when, it was kind of a long story, human design came to me a few times. And then finally, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Camino de Santiago. It's a walk, it's a pilgrimage through the south of France and along the top of Spain. And you walk this pilgrimage to answer the big questions. And my big question was, what is my purpose? And basically, I just kept getting smacked in the face by human design. It's like, you need to do this thing. And I was a little bit scared because I was very identified with my intellect, with science, with knowledge, being a behavioral coach, psychology, that sort of thing. But when I started to use it with my C-level clients, with all the corporate people, wow, the transformation was crazy. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I had gone from working part-time, sort of doing all of these bits and pieces. And I was like, well, if I'm all in with this human design experiment, my husband got an opportunity to take a retrenchment package. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll replace your massive income, and I will work. And what happened was, of course, the manifesting generator, the sacral, it's all lit up, and literally took my tiny little, very successful but part-time business and replaced his huge corporate income in 12 months because I was following my design. And as a projector, he now does, trading. He kind of is with the kids predominantly more than I am. But I mean, our kids are 15 and 11 now, so they're much bigger. And we really flipped our entire life. And one of the things that I thought was so beautiful is like, there would be so many times I just wouldn't listen to him because as an MG, I'd be on my track and I'd be like, I'm off. And, you know, now if he says something, and it's cute because he'll be like, I've just got some projector wisdom. Can I share? So he'll really like almost elicit the invitation. I'll be like, yeah, sure. And even as parents, we've got 2 MGs. So we know that we need to ask them yes, no questions. You know, if you're a manifestor or a projector or a reflector, you need open-ended questions. You know, that's what your kids need. And we also know that our kids need lots of physical exercise, but as a manifestor or a projector or a reflector, you don't, you know. So it's when you understand the nuances of your family, even just at the highest level, it can completely change the dynamics of our family. I mean, we went from a very conditioned life to like our dream life. And we spent a year last year traveling around Australia in a caravan as a family. You know, my business tripled. So I was working at the same time, but we got to see all of Australia and travel, and the kids got to, you know, homeschool and all those sort of things. So that's the beauty of human design, especially not only for you, not only for the work that you do, but it can really change the dynamics of a family.
I'm going to be emailing you after this.
Let's do it.
You my husband's profile because I'm like, you know, I want to unlock some secrets. Okay, can we take a quick peek at my chart? I know we covered a little bit of the manifestor stuff, and guys, we're going to get insular for a moment. So excuse me if sorry about that. So excuse us if this is a little like inside baseball for a minute, but I'm curious to see the rest of the chart and kind of dig in. So Rach, can we pop that up? Okay, so when we work with you, Emma, this is kind of what we get. It's if you guys are listening on the podcast, it's like, you know, a picture of a head through a torso and all of these like different connecting areas and lines and circles. So this is super complicated for anyone who doesn't know human design to interpret. So tell us what we're seeing on this chart.
Yeah. It is like the thing with human design, it is super complicated. And that for me, again, it's a bit of a frustration because it doesn't need to be complicated. So if you're new to human design, please head over, especially to my Instagram, which is the Human Design Coach, because we actually run a whole series. It's called Human Design Made Simple. Okay. So it'll take all of the complicated jargon out of it for you. So with the chart that you're looking at, if you want to pop just the actual, what we call the body graph, perfect. What we're looking at is literally how your energy is designed. So where that's everything that's colored in for you, that's who you feel you are, okay? So these are all the areas that you want to build trust in yourself. So in your thinking, in your voice, in your direction, in your willpower, and in your instinct. These are all areas that you can really trust within you, and you need to build that trust within you to rely on it. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit in a minute. Then all the white centers, this is where you're taking in everyone else's energy. And you spoke earlier about it can be really exhausting. And for you, it is really exhausting because you've got the sacral, which is undefined, which means, and the sacral is the most powerful motor in the body, okay? So sacral beings are the generators and manifesting generators. So what happens is that every time you come into aura with a generator or a manifesting generator, you are taking in and amplifying that energy. So it can almost be quite confusing for you because you're kind of like, a simple example might be you're all sitting in the lounge room with your husband and the kids, and you're deciding what to have for dinner. And before you came into the lounge room, you were like, I just wanted chicken and salad. But now I'm like, I want pizza. I want like noodles. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I can't make a decision. And that's because the sacral is influencing your energy. But it's also like tiring you out because it's that work energy. So wherever there's a white center, you got to understand that you're amplifying and reflecting back that energy. You've also got the solar plexus undefined, which is the emotional center. And that is one
crazy, that Emma, just be straight with me.
You're not the crazy one. That's the thing to understand, okay? Like emotional beings, people who have them colored in, I'm an emotional being. We ride a mechanical emotional wave. So this was a real breakthrough because I'm a behavioral coach. You know, I'd always been teaching like you have a thought creates an emotion creates a mood, so on and so forth. And the truth for an emotional being is that that's just not the case. It's there all the time. So if you have an emotional being in your house, you're amplifying that emotion and reflecting it back. You on your own, you're designed to be not overly emotional. Like you have an emotion, you feel it, it's gone, done and dusted. But if you have an emotional being in your family, you amplify it. So as a kid, oftentimes non-emotional beings are accused by their family of being the emotional one. And actually, they're just amplifying everyone else's emotion.
Oh, that's interesting. Now I have to talk through and get the kids' ones done too, because as a parent, there are such different experiences, whether you're interacting with or disciplining or teaching things to every child. And I always joke that you have to show up to an extent as a different version of yourself with each child, because there are certain things that trigger one or that encourage another that you just have to be aware of. And so hearing you say that, and like when we're all living under the same roof, is just such an inspiration for me to understand them more, because it could probably change the way I parent as well. You're saying this, and I'm picturing all the kids in my head, and okay, this one I can do this with, and I can't do that with, and it's just we're all so complicated. So this is interesting.
Exactly, and that's so beautifully put, because that's the truth. Like when we look at, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I had kids, I read all the freaking books. I'm reading the books, I'm learning the things, and one thing would work with one and it wouldn't work with the other. And you're absolutely spot on. And this is the beauty of human design, is that we can understand them down to a very nuanced way. I've got a 15-year-old at the moment who he's starting to talk about like what he wants to do later on. And he's a manifesting generator. So I can have a conversation with him and say, well, you're never going to do one thing forever. All you've got to do is follow that cycle. Like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know, Mum, I just want to work with people. And he in his profile is a line 4, which is all about the people. I'm like, brilliant. So you need to follow that. Whereas my other one, he's a line 2. And one of the challenges with that is because the line 2 is the gifted child. They want to do everything their own way. And as a parent, that can be challenging, because you're like, but you have to learn these lessons. And the truth is, he has to learn them his own way, like really needs to learn them his own way. So it's beautiful to understand all of the nuances of your family. But I want to get back to your chart. Can we get back to your chart?
Yeah, give me some takeaways too, because like I said, the biggest takeaway I have found as a manifestor is to not take that feeling personally, that like kind of frictious energy. So I already have that, but give me some other big takeaways based on what we're seeing here.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff that I want to share. So you've got a 3-5 profile. So the profile is kind of like our how, it's our theme. And the 3-5 is all about, so you're an experiential learner. So what's going to happen is people might say, what do you want to do? What do you like? Who are you? And until you've had an experience, you're going to be like, don't know, not really sure. But once you have an experience of something, then everything kind of makes sense to you. The line 3 as well is all about trial and error. It's all about experimentation. So these are people who oftentimes in childhood, they can be really afraid to fail, because failure isn't okay in our world, if you like. But the 3-5 is here to make mistakes, because what you learn in those mistakes are the things that skyrocket you forward, that catapult you forward. So the line 3 is very experiential. And it's really personable, because people will tend to feel like you've walked in their shoes, like you get them. And because you've got the 5 as well, which is the line 5 is like the leader, the healer. They also have, there's a projection field. So when you talk about that feeling that you get, that grittiness, or that feeling like sometimes things are just not gelling, it can also be amplified in that line 5, because it's got a line 5 has a projection field. Like we all, as human beings, we all project our stuff onto others. We see the world as we are, not as it is, right? But with the line 5, it's amplified. And people, what happens is that you become a mirror for other people's wounds. So they see their wound in you. So as a line 5, you've got to be really careful not to take other people's behavior personally. I mean, we all need to not take people's behavior personally, but a line 5, it's so much more important.
This is like revelatory. This has been one of my biggest challenges as an adult, is to understand when my wounds are showing up in my interactions with people and leading with, like you said, my view of the world, and not understanding, and like being clouded by my own experience. And it really shuts me down sometimes, because I lead with that, like, oh, well, I'm looking at the world, as you said, as I am, rather than as maybe what they want to show me. And it's a
Yeah.
really big fault of mine, because it really shuts down my energy to accepting people sometimes as who they're trying to tell me they are. Does that make sense?
100%, 100%. And the thing that you have to understand is that your energy, you walk through the world, and as you walk in and out of aura with people, they can feel that you're the hero, you're the savior, you're the one that can solve their problem. And then what happens is that they just project their stuff onto you, and they say, like for me in my 20s, I worked in the advertising industry, and I tell you, like, this happened like 3 or 4 times where I would be at a party. Someone in my office had drunk too much. They would come up to me, put their arm around me, and they would say, "Oh my God, I thought you were such a bitch, but it turns out you're really nice." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, what's going on inside of me?" Because I'm the nicest person on the planet, like, I am not that person. But what was happening was they were projecting onto me that was who they were. They were judging themselves for that. And they saw it in me. And that's what the line 5, what happens with the line 5. So it's so important that you don't take other people's behavior personally. And it's very important you understand that you have boundaries. Okay. So some of those people will be your people that you are going to help, that you are going to heal. But some of those people, it's really important that you just say, I'm not your manifester. I'm not that person for you, because for you, you have splenic authority. So if your spleen says that this is my person, how's your spleen going to tell you? You're going to see something, hear something, know something, feel something. There's something going to go on inside of you intuitively that, this person's for me or this person isn't for me. And you have to trust it. If it's not for you, like, they're just not your person, and you have to give yourself full permission to walk away. And that can be really hard.
I've tried to square peg and round hole a lot of people in my life. And it is the lesson I keep learning. Like, just don't. We're just not each other's people, and that's okay.
Exactly. And it is 100% okay. And the line 5, like, the biggest thing for you is that you have to do your healing first, because we live in a quantum reality, which means that, all of those people that saw that thing in me, there was something. I had the puzzle piece that could call that in. And my puzzle piece was that, I didn't fit in. I was afraid that people wouldn't like me. So I had the puzzle piece for them to project their stuff onto me. So a line 5, the fundamental thing is heal yourself first. And then, like, if people project things onto me today, I see nothing but compassion. The only person that still triggers me in that way is my mother. But
the thankless work of a mother, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're still, I know, I call even to this day, I'm almost 41. I'll call her and be like, I'm having a bad day. I just need to, like, yell at someone.
Yeah. So yeah, the one other thing I really want to get to with your chart is that we have this thing that we call the Incarnation Cross. That Incarnation Cross is made up of kind of like the most prominent energies within our design. And you've got the cross of the vessel of love. And I always say this, and I should just stop with a caveat, because I say, like, well, I don't really want to have favorites when it comes to the Incarnation Cross, but if I did, this is it. Because you're literally a person that's on the planet that is here to help people love themselves. Like the vessel of love is all about learning to love, trust, and accept yourself. It's made up of these energies that, is like the love of humanity, the love of self, the love of the body, the love of spirit. And these people, I actually had I'm working with a wealth coach at the moment. She's incredible. And she said, wow, your energy, it's amazing. And I'm like, thank you, but it's you, because I have a wide open G center and I reflect back this energy to people. And the vessels of love, like, you can't help but just want to be in their aura. You guys just feel so great to be in aura with. And the thing about being a vessel of love, one of my dear friends has a daughter who is a vessel of love, is that there's this massive journey that you guys have to go through to really love yourselves, to really accept who you are, your differences, your uniquenesses, your body, your soul, your spirit. You have this really big journey to go through. But ultimately, you are here to help the rest of us fall in love with ourselves. So yeah, and as a manifester, you think of it this way, like you're really here to initiate people into action. And you've got a line 5 in your design earth, which means that your purpose is here to use your voice. So you're exactly where you need to be on purpose, using your voice to help people love themselves, love, trust, and accept themselves in their imperfections. So yeah, I love it.
That is so powerful. Just before we wrap and get into all of the ways to work with you, Emma, can you give me just a parting piece of advice? I know that was a lot. And for anyone who's watching, guys, you'll be able to see, you can check it out on YouTube or on Facebook, which is just facebook.com/we gotta talk. You can see the way these charts are oriented, but it's a lot of graphics and a lot of pictures. So give me just one big takeaway before we wrap and before we get into how people can connect with you.
Yeah, look, the thing I would say is that if you feel called to go and check out your human design, go do it. Because one thing that we do way too much is we go external to the guru first. We know that something inside of us feels off, we don't have the results that we want. Maybe you're like me, I was like depressed and, doing panic, like I was living in a panic attack. The thing is that the answers aren't out there. The answers are inside of you, and they're much simpler than you would, So human design is that thing, in my opinion, that gives you the power to be the guru. You are the guru, and your human design, through the simplest understanding of your strategy and authority, will guide you to all the answers that you need, that it can really transform your life. And don't give up because it's complicated. Come and check out our content. It's made simple. Literally, we've set up, because especially when I started my journey, we were living paycheck to paycheck. So we've set up everything that you can get onto my website, get your free chart. Then you literally go to my podcast, which is the Human Design Podcast. Go to the podcast that says start here, and you can learn so much for free, and it really will change your life. So don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it complicate you. Don't let all that memes blow your mind and like, oh my God, I need to know all this stuff. You just don't. Listen to the podcast, follow the bouncing ball, as I often say, and it really will set you free.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's great too that you break this down into sort of actionable advice, because it can feel overwhelming. So I'm grateful. I checked out your site, and the way everything is set up is just, it's very user-friendly, guys. So check out emmadunwoody.com. That's EMMADUNWOODY.com. And Emma, just before we let you go, and please also mention your social channels before we go, but you do also work with people, say and I don't want to call you like a business coach, but advise people for their professional lives as well as their personal lives. So just tell us very briefly what it looks like to work with you one-on-one and to get that more personalized experience.
Yeah, I love that. So my background's actually corporate. So I've worked with careers and, C-level executives for many years. And ultimately, I work with people to reconnect to their purpose. Like, why are you here on planet Earth? I often joke, like, I'm really successful in business, I'm really successful with money, and I'm really successful as a podcaster. But oftentimes I don't teach them because I do it differently to everyone else. When you work with me, I teach you how to do everything differently, the way you're designed to do it, as opposed to sticking to these rules that aren't actually getting us to where we want to go. So you can work with me one-on-one. I have a membership program, which is so powerful, where we're living experiences of human design, not just the knowledge, and it teaches you everything you need to know to run your experiment. And also, so many people within that community are also coaches themselves, so they're integrating human design into their business. And you can work with me with an unpack. Oftentimes people will come to me, and an unpack isn't like a reading. I'm not just going to sit there and tell you this is in your chart. You're going to come to me and say, well, I'm doing a job I don't love, or I've just got a divorce, or I'm having trouble with my kids, or whatever the challenge is. Can you help me through my human design? And I will actually, empower you to know what's true for you and give you the way that you can make decisions for you and be your own guru. So yeah, there's a number of ways you can work with me.
Awesome. And your Instagram handle, tell us that really quickly as well.
It is the Human Design Coach. If you just and just watch out for the scammers. It's the Human Design Coach.
Yes. I mean, all the time, the people that I interview, I come across all of these fake profiles and I report them every time because I'm like, it drives me crazy. It's the worst.
Frustrating.
Yeah. Emma, you have been an amazing, amazing resource and inspiration, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've loved every second of it.
This is amazing. And guys, thank you for either watching and or listening. As always, Ratings and reviews are appreciated so much. That helps these shows to get out to people who might find them useful, interesting, informative. And that is by going to Apple Podcasts, tap the 5-star rating, and leave your review. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week on We Gotta Talk.